Let's do one more word with Alison Gopnik, who's on the line from Berkeley, California. She's a professor of psychology and philosophy at the University of California at Berkeley. We're talking ChatGPT. Is it smarter than your average 4-year-old?
Well, it depends what you mean by smart, but we've done a bunch of experiments in our lab looking at how good 4-year-olds are at innovating and thinking up new ideas, figuring out new solutions to problems. And it turns out that 4-year-olds are very good at doing that, often better than adults are. And at least in some of the experiments that we've done, it's a little hard because it's a moving target, they seem to do quite a bit better than these large language models. And I think it's interesting as a developmental psychologist, like if you just talk to a 4-year-old, they'll sound pretty plausible, but you might not really know whether they really understand things. So we developmental psychologists have put a lot of work into designing experiments like giving the child a brand new machine that no one has ever seen before because you've just made it up, and seeing if they can figure out how the machine works. And those are the kinds of experiments where something like GPT doesn't seem to do nearly as well. So it can do beautifully on things that are already out there, that people have already understood, that are out there on the internet. But if you give it something brand new that no one's ever seen, no one's ever thought about before, that's where the 4-year-olds are really doing brilliantly, and the artificial models are having a lot more trouble.
Do we know why the artificial models are having more difficulty with basic cause and effect problems?
Well, it's because of this innovation point, right? So if you give them a cause and effect problem that people have already solved, then they'll do fine because they can just go and find all the solutions on the internet. But it doesn't take much. It can just be in our lab, for instance, a new box that we make, the blicket detector, and it has blickets, and some of them make it go and some of them don't. There just hasn't ever been a blicket detector in the world. Nobody's written about it. I always worry that maybe GPT is going to read our papers, but if it hasn't read our papers, then it doesn't know anything about this. And of course, it's easy to just make a new system that works a little differently. And the children are very good at figuring out this new system that literally no one has ever seen before because we've just invented it. And that's where the weakness of just using all the information that people have seen before on the net, that's where that difference between imitating and innovating really becomes vivid. Now, as I say, the machines are changing and building up every time. And as I say, I worry that they can go out and read our papers or take a conversation about this for the specific example. But I think you can always generate this new example. And the 4-year-olds are very good at dealing with that kind of novelty, and artificial systems are not.
Well, of course, one of the things we're trying to figure out is whether ChatGPT thinks the way humans do, thinks in inverted commas. ChatGPT makes predictions about what words will come next. In some respects, how different or similar is that in the way that humans think or speak?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So, of course, we do use predictions about what people will say next, and we do use all the words that other people have produced as a way of trying to figure out the world, and children certainly do that. But we do some other things that GPT doesn't do. One thing, for instance, is that we try to build abstract theories, abstract sort of models of how the world works that go beyond just the data that we see, beyond just predicting, okay, I saw this before, so now I'm going to see this next. And of course, it's those models that let us do things like, build rockets that can go to the moon, even though we've never seen a rocket go to the moon before. And that's the capacity that children seem to have. And a second thing that I think is in some ways even more interesting is that children explore, they experiment. We call it getting into everything. But what that means is that instead of just sort of passively taking these enormous data sets, what they can do is say, let me go out and see if there's something new or surprising or something that doesn't fit with what I already know, and actually bring things about, make things happen in the world. And we know that even babies do this. We call it getting into everything, and we often try to stop them, but they're very motivated to do that. And these large language models are not doing that kind of exploration, although there are other kinds of AI systems that do. So those two things, I think, being able to build an abstract theory about how the way the world works, not just predict, if I see this, then this is the next thing I'm going to see, and being able to go out actively into the world and explore, those are two things that 4-year-olds do that let them have this kind of innovation that the large language models at least don't do.
How worried should we be, in your view, that artificial intelligence is becoming more sentient?
I think on our list of worries, that's pretty low on the list. If we look at the history of sentience in biology, it's not really connected to the kinds of things that something like a large language model can do well, like integrate lots and lots of information and then make predictions. It's more connected to actually going out in the world and interacting with the world, actually making things happen in the world. And at least for the foreseeable future, it doesn't look as if any of the AI systems that we know of are going to have that kind of capacity for novelty and innovation and creativity and discovery. Now, of course, as I say sometimes, I mean, we know that there are computational systems that are capable of doing that because they're running around at our feet every day, right? I mean, we don't think there's any kind of mysterious thing that babies' brains are doing that is completely impossible to ever put into a computational system. But we really don't understand what it is that makes things sentient or not. And insofar as we do, it doesn't look like it's the sort of thing that that contemporary artificial intelligence can do. Something that I point out sometimes is there's been a strange shift, which is we used to talk about artificial intelligence, and now we talk about an AI, an artificial intelligence, as if it was an individual agent who had sentience. And I think that's misleading. A better way to think about it is as a kind of technology like print or libraries or other kinds of technologies we've had in the past.
Understood. Thank you, Alison Gopnik.
Well, thank you, Steve.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is made possible through generous philanthropic contributions from viewers like you. Thank you for supporting TVO's journalism.